Oh, snap.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm just learning about this. I can't believe I didn't get pics.
Hello and welcome to Talking Too Loud with Chris Savage. I'm your host, Chris Savage. I am joined, as always, by Sylvie Lubau. Sylvie, how are you?
I'm good. I'm regretting I changed the arrangement in my living room, and I'm regretting where my table is for Talking Too Loud based on the video recording.
That's okay. Just arrange it again. That's what you love to do. You love to rearrange. You love to move. You love to have neighbors who make a lot of noise. You like street sounds. You love Brooklyn. This is what defines you.
All those things.
Yes.
You know me.
I sure do. I also know our guest today, Amy Spurling, who is the founder and CEO of Compt. Compt is HR software focused on employee benefits and perks, and it's pretty cool. They let you allow your team to personalize their own benefits. So it's a cool product. Amy is a great founder. I'm really excited that she came on the show, and it was fun to dig into all of this, and I'm excited for you all to hear this interview just in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But first, what's got you talking too loud, Sylvie?
Oh, man. I've been talking too loud about a lot these days. As you know, I never made it to Portugal.
Yes, that was very sad, wasn't it?
A PSA for everyone. Check your passport expiration date. It has to be valid 3 months from your departure date. Okay? So
actually do this, I would say. I almost ran into an issue earlier and this year, and I barely got by the skin of my teeth, but you did not.
I didn't. I went to Cabo instead, so it wasn't a total wash, and got to have a nice sister trip.
Okay.
And the thing that I was talking too loud about the most after that trip was we saw some... Sorry.
Are you okay? Whatever this is going to be good.
It's
Sophie's
not.
lost it over here. She's just completely a mess.
It's not. I'm just remembering there was one day in particular it was just, well, we saw some long-spined porcupine fish, which I've never seen before. They're very interesting looking.
Okay.
But the big thing was, so we couldn't swim in the ocean right by our hotel. The current is too crazy. And so we went to this separate area, a bay where you can swim. This is now a very convoluted story. Let me just start again.
It's about swimming, though. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's about swimming.
It's a story about swimming, so we love it. Yeah.
So basically, we went to the tamer part of... I can't even say it. I don't know why it's making me laugh, because it wasn't actually... It was really scary. We went to the tamer section. We were in truly bathtub depth of water, but we felt like we got caught in a wave, and it was harrowing, and it was just crazy that it could happen it.
Wait, what do you mean? You were in water that was 2 feet deep or something, and a wave came, and then you thought you're going to be washed out to sea? Is that what happened?
None of this can be in there.
This has to stay in. I'm
having a laugh.
I'm going to put my foot down on this. This must stay in.
Let me try to be clear.
This is the best content we've ever had.
Let me try to be clear.
Yeah.
Yes. What you said is accurate, that we were in very shallow water. It wasn't that we thought we were going to be swept away. It was we couldn't get out from under the wave. It was just
the wave crashed on you?
Yes, and then it kept kind of washing machine.
Okay, that's scary.
It was really...
Yeah, that's scary. I have never been in that scenario in a foot of water, but I've been in that scenario with more water, and it's not fun.
Yeah. Well, I butchered that whole story. I could tell it way better another time. But instead, we got it. Instead, tell me, what's got you talking too loud?
What's got me talking too loud is that last weekend I went up to Montreal for the F1 Grand Prix. And I have a friend who works for Aston Martin, Formula One. And
my God.
so
You must have been in heaven.
I was in heaven, like, like in the paddock, like, down, like in the garage when the drivers were getting in their cars. Like, it was utterly insane. It was amazing. I mean, I got into F1 because of Drive to Survive, which is why a lot of people got into F1, which is the Netflix series showing the behind the scenes of F1. And really, like, it's like showing you the drivers and their stories. So then when I'm there and I'm in the garage and I see, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, and they're like 5 feet away from me and they're getting in their cars and they're adjusting things and their engineers are doing stuff, I was like, I can't believe that this is happening. But I saw right when they were getting in their cars before qualifying, and they each had a separate issue that their engineers fixed in real time. And seeing that happen and seeing them like pull this stuff off the car and drive the holes and greasing and then like put it on, they just like peel out, and then suddenly they're going like 300 kilometers an hour, like over 200 miles an hour. You're just like, it's insane. I don't know. You mean, me, I love learning behind the scenes of how a team is performing, and that is like one of the things that gets me like really jazzed. And seeing that with Aston Martin, I mean, they're already in the fastest league in motorsports, right? Like F1 is Formula One. It's the top thing. But then within that, seeing a team that was like previously, like last year, had kind of been middle of the pack and now is at the top, like they came in second in the race, was just like, it's unreal. So fun. So yeah, that's what I'm talking too loud about right now.
Amazing. I'm so glad you went. That's so cool.
It was super cool. But speaking of how you get teams performing at their highest level, what it's like to transition from being a CFO to being a CEO, and a little bit behind the scenes of a benefits platform that's changing how personalized benefits can work for teams at scale and remotely and all of that, let's jump into this interview with the CEO of Compt, Amy Spurling. Amy, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here with us on Talking Too Loud.
Thanks so much. Excited to be here.
We're very excited to have you. And as you know, Talking Too Loud is a show. It's called Talking Too Loud because when I get excited, I cannot control the volume of my voice. This is a real thing. It is still a thing. I am constantly told I am too loud, but that's just how it is. But we love to start the show by asking our guests, like, what has them talking too loud? What has them excited right now? So what has you talking too loud? What has you excited?
To me, so one of the things that I'm going to spend my afternoon doing is over at the Mass State House. We've got some legislation that's in process that I'm pretty excited about and has me very, very loud.
Whoa.
Massachusetts is 46th in the country for female founders. Pretty abysmal statistic.
That's crazy.
And so there's some legislation that has been in the works for a couple of years where, we're trying to help level the playing field in a way that, gives more access, but also does it in a way that works with the way laws that are already written. So not reinventing the wheel.
I had no idea that it was that bad. That's horrible.
It's horrible. Yeah. It's really bad.
So can you go a little bit deeper? Like
Sure.
What's in this legislation? Like, what should people be aware of?
So one of the really cool things about the way it's evolved, I mean, this has, again, been in the process for years. I've learned so much about the legislative process where it could literally take a decade to get legislation passed, which, startup mindset.
I know.
I don't work in decades.
Yes.
I work in like months. So a little frustrating, but the new version that I think is very exciting kind of mirrors fair lending laws. So there's a lot of laws on the books already for the banking industry to make sure that they're not discriminatory in how they give loans, how they evaluate who gets loans, mortgages, things like that. Applying some of that same regulation to venture is actually it makes a lot of sense because it's access to capital, is how you get funding, and there should be some criteria. And so it's kind of walking a middle ground, but pulling from laws that are already in place that have been for a very long time.
Interesting. So is that kind of like the venture capital firms would have to open up like a look at who their prospects are and how they work through the funnel and all those types of things?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Transparency.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it is pretty transparent. Nobody's getting money. Like, that's pretty transparent right now. So
yeah, but we don't know where the bottlenecks are or if they
exactly.
Like which
you hear it's a pipeline
problem.
There's not enough female founders. Women start 50% of the businesses out there. but only 2% of funding. It's actually 1.9% of funding nationally goes to female founders. And it gets worse as you go into certain states. And so there's just, it's a huge economic issue for our entire country. Like the fact that these founders are not getting funded means that we're missing out on all this economic opportunity as a country, which is just mind-boggling because all the stats show female founders tend to be more capital efficient, tend to build more repeatable businesses, you know, build better products, all the things. The more diverse teams perform better. So
yeah, it seems like, I mean, even if it was exactly this, if it was exactly the same, it would be a huge problem. It's like a huge waste of education and time and effort, and businesses that are different types of businesses potentially that people are starting. Like, it seems like the argument is like obviously extremely strong to amend this. I mean, those numbers are bad. That is a wild man.
It's pretty crazy. I believe Alabama is ahead of Massachusetts in funding female founders.
It's particularly sad because there's so much funding in Massachusetts. Like that makes it even more sad. Well, I'm glad you're going to the State House. That's
I'm
good.
excited for that. Yeah. That's got me being very, very loud.
Yeah. Amy, you're the founder and CEO of Compt. Can you tell us, for people who don't know, what is Compt, what do you do, and who is it for?
Sure. So Compt is employee perk reimbursement software, employee lifestyle benefit software, where companies take a look at the slice of the compensation stack that really makes them competitive and makes it accessible to everyone. So I started this because I was a CFO and on the buying side for this software for so many years. And I just had a string of very unhappy people, employees coming through my office wanting something different. And I didn't have software that worked. So decided to build a platform to make everyone, and myself, very happy.
You must have seen a pretty big problem to switch roles and to start a company like this. Can you go can you bring us into that and you know, what kind of stuff were people asking for that they couldn't get, and where did you see the gap in the opportunity?
So I had never planned on being a founder. There's some startup founders that are have 20,000 ideas and it's how do I build the right thing. That was never me. I loved being a CFO, a COO, operationalizing somebody else's vision. And also the pattern of what I saw as, you know, a founder was a very specific archetype. What I realized, though, was that all of my companies, I was managing finance and HR. And the problem that I kept seeing was how we compensated people and how that had shifted over time. When I started my career, people negotiated for salaries, and that was the big deal. And, you know, sit there, be happy, you have a job. Things that are just non-existent anymore. It's much more of a candidate's market and has been for a long time. So salary became table stakes. Health insurance has become table stakes in certain industries. And now you've got, all right, so how do I compete for talent? And that became around employee perks, you know, when times were good and there was lots of money. And there was an app for everything and everybody's selling to HR. Hey, I can sell to all your team this amazing new whatever product. And so I was buying some of that stuff because you have to have it to compete for talent. But reality is that anything you bring in is being used by maybe 3 to 5% of the team. And so if people would come through the door and say, hey, I would love to be sponsored for an Alzheimer's walk I'm going to go do. That's really important to me. I would like the company to do that. And the answer was always no for me, which was really frustrating. Like, that's fantastic. And personally, I very much support that. But if we give you money for that, then I have to give money to every other person who has a charity. And then I have to vet which charities. And then that's our entire budget. And not everyone cares about charities. And so all I said was no. And I was a very, very grumpy person, as, you know, some people from my prior companies can probably attest to. So I'm like, you want good things and I can give you none of this. And so I wanted to build a platform where I could say yes to people and allow people to be treated like adults and manage that portion of their compensation in a way that mattered to them without me having to be like team mom, which is ridiculous, and decide, oh, what is going to make everyone happy? Like, that's not a thing.
So basically you're saying we've had this exact same issue, which is like, hey, can't you just sponsor me on this thing? It's like exactly as you said. Well, if we did that for everybody, and like not everyone's going to care about everything. We've tried, you know, all of that. You saw that, you've decided to kind of like the new model that you see is a world where it's more transparent to the employee that you're getting these benefits, and they are allocating them the way that they want to. And so it's all about yes versus no.
Exactly. It's leading with yes, because ultimately as an employer, what I want is I want happy people, I want them super engaged, and I want them retained. And so that's what matters to me.
Yeah.
How we get there, there's a lot of flexibility. Now, different companies want to focus on different things. Wellness stipends are by far the most common use case that companies want to put out there. They want their team to be healthy, which is great.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what healthy is for each person is very different. I think about mental health apps. I am a very big proponent, obviously, for our team and for myself, and making sure that people have access to mental health, things that can help them. But should I be determining what that process looks like for my team? Ooh, terrifying. That is just a very, very bad plan versus letting them work with their professionals and determining what works best for them. It could be a meditation app, but it may also be, maybe it's acupuncture. Maybe it's going for a walk and they need shoes for that. Maybe it's actually going to the gym or going for a run. There's a lot of things that can impact somebody's mental health. I don't want to be in charge of that. What I want to say is we support it. Here you go. Go do the things that matter to you.
And in this world, I assume that the employee can see the value of these benefits and allocate them.
There's no points.
Yeah,
I don't
which
do
is
point system. It's currency conversion.
Yeah, okay.
Don't make employees. They're going to figure out, I got 3 points. I can use it for this thing. They're doing the currency conversion anyways. Just be transparent about it.
Okay, cool. Is there a downside to that where people can see hey, this might have felt like a big benefit, but actually it's not?
I mean, we haven't seen that. What we've seen is that it's honestly gone the other direction, where normal utilization, if you have individual perks, is 3 to 5% per perk. Mm-hmm. If you go with a marketplace approach, that has some vendors they can choose from, you usually get 30 to 40% utilization. What we've seen now for over 4 years is 91% utilization.
Wow, that's amazing.
So 91% of people on our platform are using their stipend. So you just see very happy, very engaged people. And we actually just did a survey across just our users and said, all right, how likely are you to stay at your company because of this benefit? And 65% of the employees said, I am more likely to stay at my company because they have this type of a benefit for me.
Well, I mean, that's great. That's incredible.
It's
you must
powerful.
Feel really good. I mean, that's you have this new model. It's working.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's more than doing the thing. It seems like it's a totally new way of doing this.
It is. And it makes me happy because we can say yes. I don't have to say no to my team who wants to use their wellness stipend, for instance, in very different ways. It's just okay, you're all adults, do things that relate to wellness. Cool, go do that. I don't want to be in charge of it.
That is super cool. Let's talk about the shift to remote and the also return to office. Are you seeing big changes when you look across your customer base in terms of the types of benefits that people want now or what's being valued? What insight would you give to employees and employers? What should people be looking for, and what should employers be thinking about giving to their team in this moment today?
I mean, the biggest battle is, are you doing return to office? I mean, there's no amount of a commuter stipend that's going to make someone happy to sit in a car for 3 hours a day. So you have to fight the first battle of, are we going to force a return to office, restrict our hiring pool to just within a circumference, around that city where people can drive to? And is that our strategy? Because that's a very specific strategy. Or are you going to stay fully remote? And depending on where companies land on that, which different products you have to be in person, I get that, it determines kind of what we see companies doing. Most companies are still focused on wellness because that'll include mental health, that may include financial wellness, things that impact an employee's wellness and their well-being is going to improve and impact their productivity. So that's by far the biggest use case. For companies that are fully remote, though, they're also using stipends as a way to manage that. You don't want to be procurement. I'm working out of my condo. This is my office. And so do I want to have 6 desks waiting in the corner for me to drop ship to new hires? Nope. Ain't got space for that.
Yeah.
So having a stipend where people can go and buy the desk that fits in their house makes it a lot easier as well. So fully remote companies tend to use this a little differently than in-office companies.
And then do you have insight into even that's a really interesting thing in general that just made me think about, which is how important is it that you should be giving folks desks? Is that something that people should be doing? Should it just be a cash bonus when you start that's your remote working thing? Or are you able to see how the next layer of how people are spending their dollars to help inform folks of hey, you're missing out on this opportunity? What are you seeing there?
Sure. So we see most companies are giving a certain amount of money for the first 90 days of hire, because at this point, most people have a desk or a chair, but you may need a refresh. You may need a new monitor or a mouse or maybe a new chair, but you probably don't need a brand new desk. We're 3.5 years into this, fully working remote. So we've seen the amount that people are given as they're hired come down. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was around $1,500. Now I'm seeing new hires get more like $500, and then there'll be a refresh piece every year, because chances are at some point your chair is going to need to be replaced. And so giving a couple $100 a year so that people can get refresh items or a new headset or a new whatever they need. And so that has changed as more and more people have that remote work setup, which gets very interesting. It's not a cash bonus because not everyone needs something. It's you can have this if you're going to use it for the things that this relates to. And then it doesn't have to be taxed either, which is great.
That's cool. It's interesting. I mean, so I'm also wondering, is there something you're seeing now that you think we should be getting ready for in 2 years? Is there something that's hey, this is going to be something that everyone wants, or definitely don't do X, Y, Z? What should I think about for the next 2 years of hiring or employing my team?
I mean, for me, it's still about the focus on remote. I still think that is going to be the biggest driver. That's a big battle right now, as so many companies, especially with real estate footprints, are trying to force the return to office, but it limits your hiring pool. And I think the companies that stay distributed are going to have a much better competitive advantage, because you can get people with different backgrounds, different mindsets from all over the place, which I think is really powerful. If you're fully in office, you can edit this out.
No, we're not.
But...
No.
So I do think that's the big piece.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Whoops, I just set off a little grenade. But the other thing in thinking about that as well, though, is how you support your team. And I still believe, personalization is where it's at. Stop dictating to your team what wellness or family or remote work means and what they need. Let people be adults within this sandbox you create and allow them to personalize for themselves. And we've seen some really interesting, really powerful data come from this. One of the competitive ways you could approach what we're doing is with these marketplaces. It's usually 20 to 30 different companies they could purchase something from. It feels sort of personalized, but usually gets much lower utilization. When you remove that, what you find is that people tend to buy local. So all that money you're investing in your team is then being invested in the communities where they live, which is then supporting them from the bottom up, rather than having to go to big box stores where that revenue is going to Wall Street. And so it's just a very different ecosystem you create by allowing for that level of personalization, which is pretty impactful and pretty exciting.
It also should be said that it's stressful to make those decisions for everybody.
100%. You're going to get it wrong 100% of the time.
Yeah.
There's one person who wants the thing that came to your mind. That's it.
Exactly. We give everybody something, and then they're actually 20% of people I don't want this, or I don't believe in it, or whatever. And it's And then I think that's also why a lot of bigger organizations, they have trouble doing more unique things, because that's classic fear of turning folks off.
Well, and on top of that, it just doesn't scale. So as an example, we took a sample of our team, or of our employee users. We looked at 8,700 people and watched them for a year. We've got this amazing utilization. So we're like, how many different unique vendors, since we have no vendors on the platform and it's all personalization, how many unique vendors do these people use in a year's time? Because that's what you'd have to replicate internally.
Yeah.
Guess how many different vendors they used in that period of time?
Per person? Or
per person
company?
Or in aggregate. Either way, it's the same.
Oh my God. 20? I don't know.
50.
So total was 27,000 different vendors. On average, each person's using 3 unique vendors, though.
Okay.
Wow.
So you'd have to, for each person, find 3 things every person on your team wants. Nobody can do that. That's not a thing. And what they want is going to change 3 months later.
Of course.
So it's going to be movable.
You need a different thing at work. You need a different thing in life. You need a different thing. Yeah. It's
We had one woman on our team early on, she started out, she was, using her stipend for road races and entry fees. And then she got pregnant and shifted to prenatal vitamins and Lamaze. And then she had the baby and transitioned back. It followed her journey, and I did nothing. I had to literally do nothing. It was amazing for me to be able to support her and to also not be involved in her decision-making process.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, I love this. I mean, I had no idea this is exactly what you do, and it's like really cool to be hearing about it. Because like when you're talking, I just keep thinking about these like stressful decisions that people come to me with. They're like, should we use this? I don't know. And then it's like, oh, well, like this is slightly different than before, and some people love the thing before, and some people hate it, and it's like, so it's very cool.
You're gonna have mutiny. Everything like you pull out, you're going to have mutiny. There was a company in Boston. I was talking to the CEO. I won't name names because I don't know.
Oh, you can we'll just bleep it. I'm just kidding. He's
good. But he was, so a company got very big in the recruiting space in Boston, and he walked through his office, this was before the pandemic, and noticed that like nobody was eating the bagels that were being brought in on Friday because some of the team was gluten-free or they didn't want bagels or whatever the thing, right? And he's like, well, this is stupid. I'm wasting money. And he pulled it away. Within 24 hours, there were reviews on Glassdoor saying the company must be going under. I can't believe they took this away. Like he had it memorized. It was traumatizing for him where he's like, oh my God, all I did was like pull away stupid bagel Fridays where they were stale bagels anyways. But there's always some portion of the team that loves that specific thing. And so instead of trying to cater to each little voice, it's how do we allow for all of that to exist? And the people who want bagels, go buy your bagel. That's what a stipend's for.
That's
like,
great.
Keep everyone happy.
I want to transition a little bit to your transition when you went from like being the CFO or helping or being the COO and you know managing someone else's vision to really being the CEO and jumping in and building your own. Like, bring us back. Like, what was that like? What did that feel like when you started Compt?
Some of it was, I mean, it was a progression. It wasn't quite as kind of stair-step change. I knew through my last couple of roles as CFO and COO that this was the trajectory I was heading because I'd been doing the research on this exact problem, and I knew I needed this tool to solve for that compensation piece. So I wasn't going to be able to scale another company without solving this problem somehow. So it was gradual over time for the move to, all right, now I'm going to go start a company. Once I started it, parts of it were very comfortable. I've been fundraising for my entire career. I've done, at this point, I'm 24 years into my career, and I've done a round of funding every year for 20, like all but 1 year. This will be my first year off in my entire career where I haven't fundraised. So
wow, that's wild.
It's a delightful breather.
You need a t-shirt.
Need a drink.
Years without fundraising.
I need a cocktail.
Yeah.
But like that part was very familiar with me. I've got a finance background, so building models and figuring out the business model and pricing and all that. And I'm the buyer. So figuring out the buyer journey, also something that I was comfortable with. It was new, but I was comfortable with it. The piece that was the biggest transition for me, and one I didn't anticipate, was how much I'd have to change my voice. And so me coming in as a CFO or a COO next to a founder, so always kind of board mandated, hey, we raised a round to make sure the founder doesn't go spend all the cash type of a role. My job was to make sure, literally that was the role.
I know, I love that though. Like, well, board mandated, just don't screw this up royally, okay? Thanks.
Well, I mean, it's literally a dual hire because a CFO reports to both the board and the CEO. You've got two bosses there, which gets very interesting over time. But with that, it was trying to make sure that you didn't inhibit the CEO's vision because they had some amazing vision that got them this far, but then helping to translate it to how you scale and build a business that goes beyond the things that don't scale, which is what happens in the early years. And a lot of times those ideas are a little off the wall, as most founders need to be able to get where they are. So I had to spend a lot of time being very loud and pushing back on these very opinionated and rightly so founders. And so I pushed a lot. Whereas when I came into my own company, if I do that, I bulldoze right over the top of the entire team and nobody has a voice anymore. And so I had to really take it down about 20 notches so that other ideas can be heard, because that's critical to us building the best product and the best process and the best everything. It can't just be me driving it. So instead of being the push, I had to take a quieter role, which was pretty refreshing for me to not be like fighting the fight every day. It's been quite a delight. And also just hearing how many amazing ideas these amazing people I work with have.
Yeah, you know, you're touching on something that's really in like, I don't know that most people understand this dynamic of having the CFO who is responsible for the numbers and like trying to make sure like you're hitting the certain profitability level or growth level or what have you, or like the funding across the business is being like calibrated properly. The CEO, and it's interesting because you say, it's like you need to take a step back and like hear for more ideas. Because I think like the caricature of a CEO is often not that right. It's like big, bold ideas. You do my vision. Like, let's go.
Right. Those are not the best companies. I mean, if you just let a CEO run rampant, I mean, I did that. There was one button I was insistent the engineering team build. And I was like, this is the most important button. And literally no one used it. And they're like, well, thank you for that. I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to my lane. Leave y'all alone. That's correct. But I mean, I'd seen that happen, and without even being intentional, honestly, from prior CEOs, where they would just walk through a room, have a random musing come out of their mouth, and it would derail an entire team's roadmap. They did not intend for that to happen. But that's what happens when you speak as a CEO. People listen. And so I have to be very, very mindful of that instead of the push to make sure that we don't run out of money, don't die, don't run off a cliff, which was, my prior job.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to this, and it's an interesting thing because it took me a long time to figure out how to harness it properly. Because at first, in the early days, you're in the thick of it, and I'm sure you feel like this. You're just like sitting next to everyone at the table. It doesn't feel that different. Like we're just all people. We're sitting at the table working. Like we're just building, right? Like and an idea can come from anywhere. And there's moments in the business when the team size changes enough that people's relation to you changes a lot.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes you don't realize that's happened. At least that's what happened to me. Is like, I was like, oh wait, like I'm throwing out I'm throwing out ideas. I'm not expecting.
We're brainstorming here.
We're brainstorming, right? That's what we do. And then people were just like, no, we're doing it because you said it.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, this is a mistake, or like I've thrown this team completely off. And then the other thing that eventually became clear to me was like, is like the power of the modeling. Of like how you want people to show up is like how you have to show up. And if you actually do that, that scales better than many processes. Like you want a process to work, like 100%. you do it yourself. And if you don't, it doesn't go.
That's exactly right. You can have a manual for everything, but if you aren't modeling that behavior, it'll never happen within a team. And so we run actually very process light here compared to some of my prior companies. Which is a little bit odd for CFO. We do love some process, and we have process and want to make sure things get done. But I don't have like an expense manual. I don't have, some of the things that you would expect with teams that travel. Because I'm like, look, I could build the very thick deck of all the things you should or shouldn't do. But if I treat you with respect and treat you like an adult, and you see how I behave, I will stay in a worse place than anyone on my team. I won't actually let my team stay in the nasty places that I'm willing to stay. Yes. I'm a cheap founder and I want my money to go to things that scale the business. Like I want the money to go to other things. But they see that it's not me saying, oh, well, I'm special. I get to fly business. I'm special. I get a better hotel. And you get a notch below that. Because what happens is then the middle manager, their power comes from having that little bit better than everyone else, and it trickles down, and it's like, what a waste of energy. Like, let's just do this a little differently.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny. I think about a moment that Sylvie, you can tell me. I don't think I've said this before, but I used to have this feeling like, so we raised angel money in 2008, 2010. We hired 2 people in 2008. And when we first...
Great year, by the way.
Oh, great year.
I'm having some triggering moments right now.
It was right before everything went sour. And we had plans of getting up to like 10 people by the end of the year. We just stayed at 4. We left that
smart
stuff. Yeah. But my co-founder, Brett, and I had been working out of this like 10-person house in Cambridge before this. And so we lived in that house. We worked at the house. So going to work was just like walking down the hall.
Right.
And did I dress up to do that? No. Was I super early every day? No. And then we raised money. And our goal was to beat the other 2 people to the office once we got an office. So Brent and I would like dress up and, wear like collared shirts, and we would just, and it's like idiots. We got a really cheap office, but it was far away from where we lived. So it was like we were commuting with traffic. It was so stupid. We'd get up so early to beat these guys to the office, to try to set an example or something. But it took me a long time to like give myself the freedom that I wanted other people to have, where I would like be like, well, it's 5 o'clock or maybe it's 4 o'clock. Now I'm fast forwarding. We're like 50 people on the team or
Right.
something. It's 4:00. I don't have anything to do right now. Like I've done all the main things I need to do. Like I might need to think about stuff or read something. I might randomly type, but I don't have a thing that I have to deliver on.
Right.
Should I go home? Should I stay? And I would always stay until I had my first kid. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, there's like this alternative to my time that makes me more fulfilled to spend time with my kids, gives me more energy. And I last thing I would do is sacrifice that over the long term. So it was like, I'm an idiot. And I started, and if me staying at the office later is going to be what makes people work, like, then we have a problem.
Yeah, you got a much
you know what I
bigger
mean?
issue if that's the issue.
Yeah. And it was like, it was really freeing to realize that and to be like, of course I would want that for somebody else. And, or if you have like an appointment with your kid or something, of course you should be able to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then like, without really saying anything, it shifted, and people got more outcome focused and we started measuring things differently. And it was like, wasn't about the time and like that you're there, it was like about what you produced. And then ultimately that was incredibly helpful when we went remote. I'm not trying to take all the credit for that at all. A million people worked on that, but like it made it so there's like, okay, remote, it's about trust, it's about flexibility, and it's about outcomes. And it's just managing the outcomes. And like, if you do that, it doesn't really matter how people
The
are
rest
spending
doesn't
their
matter.
time.
That's exactly right. I think it's interesting, like that I think is one of the blessings of having parents on the team. A lot of my I don't have kids, and I'm in my mid 40s and don't plan on having children, but all of my teams had some component of parents. And what I found was that the early stage teams that were, in their 20s, early 30s didn't have children. Most of my teams were very homogenous, very MIT white guy engineer centric. They didn't start having that culture shift until people started having children, and those people started having children. They're like, oh, it was like an awakening for a lot of the folks that I worked with. And that's been something where I wanted to design for that early because it made it easier to hire those people early and we could get different talent. And that's been like, it was a shift for me as well, because again, I don't have kids. Like I can, I can get a lot of sleep that my coworkers do not get. And so making sure I create space for that and recognize that my way of working and my hours are going to be a little different from theirs because of that is okay.
Yeah. Well, it's another form of diversity, right? And I think it's like, it's like, and you don't really, this is an example where you can change the class that you're in and most you can't. And I think like, that's why the inclusivity is so important, I think, is so that you have to be hyper aware of how other people feel, or at least not hyper aware, very aware. And the benefit is you end up operating better and making better decisions.
Right.
That's like, that's where you get to.
Not putting your own, like if I put my limitations on somebody who has children, like we've got some amazing power moms on this team who I honestly have no idea how they get done what they get done, because I couldn't actually do that. If I didn't have the amount of sleep that I have with no children, I would cease to function. If I put my limitations on them and assume that they are going to operate at that level, I'm going to be inhibiting them, because quite frankly, they've got way more ability to execute on some things than I would on their, like the way they've designed their lives. So it's allowing people to have those differently designed lives and recognizing if you're measuring and working towards outcomes, drop off, pick up, like 5-year-olds are not hitchhiking. Of course, parents have to pick up their children, deal with it. It just is what it is. And so allowing for them to work in a different fashion just makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And I also feel like it's like, if that's the difference between successes and failures, like someone had to be away for like 30 minutes, like, then you have a bigger problem. So that's
exactly right.
It's also like, I think, how long-term focused are you? It's like, how much are you investing in your people? And obviously there's a lot of incredible people who then have little kids and then they have trouble sleeping, whatever, and then their kids figure out how to sleep and they figure it out. And then they, you know what I mean?
All a transition.
It's just exactly. Bring us back a little bit too. So you saw this difference in how you had to show up. And being like more flexible. We're talking about modeling, and what's one of my favorite things to talk about. It's like how to lead in this way. Are there other things that you saw that were really different or surprising, or things that you would tell yourself if you were starting the business again today with the knowledge you have? Is there something you would definitely do again, or do more, or do less?
Both.
Okay.
So the do more of, I came in with a lot of compensation philosophies and kind of workplace philosophies from my 6 prior startups. And there's a lot of that I would absolutely continue doing and do again. So things like from day one, I said, we're measuring to outcomes that assume you're working 40 to 45 hours a week, period. End of story.
Cool.
Which is very counter to every startup ever. And I actually got in a very heated, not quite cage match, but not far from it, with a VC on a panel one night in Boston.
Yeah.
Who was like, you're going to fail. And I was like, I'll see you in 10 years, buddy.
Yeah.
Like, look, if people are working 120 hours a week, they're going to write some buggy, shitty code, quite frankly. And so let's not do that. Let's have people who can bring critical reasoning skills and think through. We're in a problem-solving stage here. We don't have a repeatable process. I need their brains fully engaged, not just fighting fires. And so from day one, we did that. And I think that's been part of our ability to scale the way we have, but also be very capital efficient, because we haven't made a bunch of mistakes. You know, a lot of startups burn through their first 5 million and then go, oh, now I've figured some things out, and have to go back to the well. We didn't do that. We don't have the luxury to do that, quite frankly, as a female, lesbian founded company. We are going to be getting tiny little sliver of that pie. We got to make it last. And so that I would do again. And so that's been great. Things I would do differently. I didn't trust myself enough on the sales side. I'm a trained COO. I'm a trained CFO. I'm the numbers person and the modeling person and the risk management person and all those things. But there were a lot of voices, including some of my own head, saying, but you're not a salesperson and you don't know what a sales process is. So you should not do this, and you should hire for the things you're not good at. And I did that repeatedly and have fallen on my face every single time, because I'm selling to myself. This is my buyer. I do know my buyer. I do know what I want. I do know how to find me and approach me. And so when I started doing that is when the business took off. And so I wish I had done that earlier and just trusted that I knew what I was doing, instead of assuming there was some magic pill that somebody who had read, the Challenger sale was going to solve.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you on that. I feel like it's so easy to think that, you have to hire someone who's like, quote, done it, and they're going to have the answer. And I think it's like, actually the truth is every single business is different, and the customer and exactly what they want and need is different. And if you try to do it yourself, you at least understand the pain, right? And you understand maybe what's working. And we've been doing Wistia 17 years. And when I look back on the moments that have been like the most successful periods of time, it is when we are most actively using our product and understand the pain of the customer.
And living and breathing it. I mean, we use obviously our own software because it's how we manage that part of the compensation where we're interacting with. And I'm the one who's still processing payroll. So I am the one who is I'm managing this on the administrator side. Yeah. So I understand exactly that. But I'm like, I wish that button did something different. And so it changes that. And that means that every single person on this team is a user and has their own unique experience with how this is helping or not helping them, and has feedback. And so it's not hey, everybody sit down, do bug testing. Hey, everybody play with the software. It's impacting their lives. Yeah. It's just part of how you get your compensation. So you get different feedback. So
we use Wistia a ton internally. I use it a ton, but we basically have, our support admin mode that you can get into to help customers. So you can get into their account and help them. And by default, people at Wistia had that access. And then, of course, what that meant is that there was a lot of things where we weren't feeling certain. We were getting around the pain that some of our customers feel. And so just advice for anyone who's out there, use the actual version your customers are using, because if you don't, if you have the slight admin privilege, you can get away with not feeling sometimes the friction of pain or an email not looking good or whatever. And it's a mistake that we made here that we've remedied. So just quick call out on that.
Love that.
Okay. I have a rapid fire segment that I want to do. So I am going to ask you 5 questions. Each one, you can just try to do your 1 sentence answer or 1 word or whatever. And if we screw it up and it's horrible, we won't release it. But I think it's going to be great.
Fantastic.
Okay. So first question of the rapid fire segment. What is your go-to karaoke song or morning pump-up jam?
Oh. Honest answer, karaoke is Bitch Better Have My Money by Rihanna.
There you go.
I
And
was a CFO for a long time. I did a lot of collections.
this is why
It's
we
on
do the
the
rapid
nose.
fire
This is why I'm
segment.
actually blushing. It takes a lot to make me blush.
That is amazing. Okay. What is the best book you've read on leadership?
Ooh, best book on leadership. There's a book called Disrupted by Dr. Patty Fletcher that talks about how female founders disrupt in the market. That has been really impactful and powerful.
Awesome. CEOs should borrow this skill set from CFOs.
Risk aversion to some extent, just to temper their own going over a cliff sensibilities. The risk tolerance could be brought down a little bit.
Love that. Okay. Employers should double down on this in 2023.
Employee personalization. That's how you're going to hire and retain folks.
Perfect. A positive work culture needs to have blank.
Transparency.
I love it. That was a great rapid fire.
Not bad. I
liked
can't
it.
believe I let it off with the karaoke.
That's, Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. This is great. I love talking to you about like personalizing these benefits and how to do that and how to think about that. And also like, good luck today.
Thank you.
With the legislation. Like it's really important work. And I had no idea you're doing that today. So that's awesome that you're going to do that. Where can people best connect with you to learn more?
LinkedIn, Twitter, the web. So comp.io has lots of information. They can email me at amy@comp.io. I'm always happy to chat, or Amy Spurling on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on Talking Too Loud.
Thanks so much.
It's interesting to chat with someone who's been going through this transition of like, being the COO or the CFO, and even just having to say no all the time. But it's not something you hear that much about. And so it really like struck me that was one of those big changes she saw as she jumped into the CEO role.
Yeah, I mean, also just like going from COO, CFO, where she was like, I totally relate to what you're saying, but I can't give you what you want, to then like building a whole company around saying yes. Like what a mind shift. Like that's like the transition from CFO to CEO, but also going from being a no woman to a yes woman.
Yeah.
Like that's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah. And even just the way that she saw that opportunity and knew it was real, right? Like there's a bunch of things in that. It's like, well, you see that people are spending money on this. You see how they're spending money. You see the decision-making process. You're proving to yourself across these different businesses that the opportunity exists. And she's like, well, I just have to do this because I can't say no anymore. And this stuff is like very cool, because I think a lot of times, we're working our day to day, or you're doing a job and you see an opportunity to improve something, and actually you have the budget, or you see the budget next to you, and like, you could see the pain, and that's what it looks like. Like that's what finding an opportunity looks like. It's like seeing something that people spend time and money and effort on, and just translating that into a solution that makes sense. And so it was just really cool to hear how she saw that too, right? Because I feel like a lot of people, they see things that they're annoyed with, or they are having to say no, or they're not being able to do something. It's like, why? It seems so obvious. Like, why aren't we fixing that? I was like, well, that's what entrepreneurship is about, right? It's about finding those opportunities and going after them. So I love that she broke that down for us.
Totally. And also like personalization is everywhere these days. Like that is what people crave. And it's just funny that like, I'd never like really connected the dots between like personalization and like HR employee benefits, which is like exactly where personalization makes the most sense. Do you know what I mean? But it just seems like such a, I don't know what the word is.
It's just an area that has not had that yet.
That hasn't had that. Exactly.
Yeah, that's how I felt. It was like, and that's why I asked that question about, do people not like seeing the actual dollar values versus the perks? Because one of the things about the perks, I think, at least as they've been pitched to me over the years, is like, oh, well, people will value free lunch more than the cost of free lunch, right? Like if you just gave them the dollars. But I do think another big shift because of COVID is the relation to work is shifted. It is interesting because even just like, yeah, I want to know how much it costs. And I don't want you to waste the money for me. If you're going to give me the benefit, let me have control. Like, it makes sense because that also seems like a trend of the direction that we're going.
100%.
Yeah. Well, look, that was a fun one. So excited that Amy came on here. And for those of you who are big Talking Too Loud fans, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you. And if you are a big fan, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to it. That really helps other people find it.
Let us know how you feel about the rapid fire segments.
Yes, let us know about how you feel about rapid fire. If you want to connect with Sylvie or I, we are both on Twitter. I am C Savage. Sylvie is Give Me the Loot. But we're spending more of our time these days on LinkedIn. So find us on LinkedIn. And finally, if you have feedback, questions, guest suggestions, you want to pitch someone to be on the show, you want to pitch for an industry for us to go find someone to interview, please email ttlpod@wistia.com. And that is it. Until next time. See you soon, everyone.